What's going on, my friend? It's Jeff Newport from Chasing Strength. And in today's video, we are going to discuss why the experts are wrong about kettlebells building muscle. All right, let's dive in here. So admittedly, this is not quite as prevalent today at the making of this video as it used to be 5, 10, 15 years ago. But every once in a while, I run across an expert right, spouting off that kettlebells are a conditioning tool, right? Kettlebells are just a conditioning tool and that kettlebells don't build muscle. Now, usually this expert comes in the form of some roided out of his mind bodybuilder, right? In some kind of string tank top. I have to stop there. I was going to go too far. Okay. Or some guy who looks like he's never lifted a weight in his life because he's been busy in the research stacks in the basement of some university. Okay. Working on his PhD and whatever. All right. In fact, unfortunately, it's still prevalent enough, this concept of building muscle or not building muscle with kettlebells, that I just answered an email from somebody the other day. And just this gentleman said, and we'll put this up here on the screen for you, at 70 kilograms of weight and 85 grams of protein, can I build muscle mass and improve my strength using kettlebells? How would I feel improvement in my muscle mass and my strength? And will kettlebell workouts alone be sufficient to build muscle mass and strength? There are some extremely conflicting insights on it in the online forums. All right, totally get it. So let's break this down from the top. First, this is what I told this gentleman. Yes, you can build strength, but the muscle will be harder, right? That's because the current recommendation for building muscle is 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. How would you feel improvement? Well, you wouldn't. You'd measure it objectively through your training log, a tape measure, and body composition measurements. Yes, resistance builds muscle and strength regardless of the implementer tool. The key is knowing how to structure your program in order to do so. Many, if most people, don't know how to do this, especially with kettlebells. So they say, quote, kettlebells don't build muscle, end quote, or, quote, you can't get strong using kettlebells, end quote, or, quote, kettlebells are an endurance/conditioning tool, end quote. All right. So that's what I told him. Second, before we get to the not knowing how to program part, we have to deal with the fact here that there are many different explanations for muscle growth. Okay. I'll throw 5 or 6 of them up here. We'll go through them together. Right. And I will leave the links to the references in the description below. I just have to remember to tell my editor to do that. Okay. First up, mechanical tension and mechanotransduction. Now, in this case, mechanical signals from resistance exercises, right? Whatever kettlebell exercise you choose to use are the primary stimuli for hypertrophy. Okay. These signals activate mechanotransduction pathways, which convert mechanical stress into cellular responses, promoting protein synthesis and muscle growth. A lot of fancy words there. You can look them up on your own, okay? All right, then we've got number 2, we've got the mTORC1 signaling, or mTORC1 if you prefer. mTORC1, mTORC1 is a pivotal regulator of muscle protein synthesis and ribosomal biogenesis, okay? And that facilitates the growth of the muscle fibers that we're trying to grow. Makes sense, okay? So mTORC1 or mTORC1 is activated by mechanical overload, the lifting of heavier weights, and nutrient availability, particularly amino acids, right? Remember, amino acids, you can take them in the form of branch chain amino acids, or you get them primarily from your protein, which is why I told this gentleman you're going to have to eat more protein. Okay, number 3 is a satellite cell activation. Satellite cells or muscle stem cells contribute to muscle hypertrophy by fusing with existing muscle fibers, and that increases the number of nuclei and enhances the muscle's capacity for growth. Number 4, ribosomal biogenesis, and that's the increase in ribosome production, which enhances the muscle's ability to synthesize proteins, right? The more protein you eat, okay, you want more ribosomes, okay? And that supports hypertrophy. Hormonal and growth factor influence, okay? Now, while systemic hormones like growth hormone and testosterone have limited direct impact post-exercise, at least that's what we know so far. The literature, some of the early literature says that was the thing that was responsible for muscle growth. Now the latest research says that it's not responsible at all. So it probably swings, the pendulum is probably somewhere there in the middle. All right. Local growth factors such as IGF-1 or insulin like growth factor 1, actually play a role in muscle adaptation and growth. Okay. Now, finally, last but not least, we have mechanical. We already covered mechanical here, Jeff. What are you doing? Metabolic. We got metabolic stress. Metabolic stress from resistance exercise, such as that which is induced by blood flow restriction. Okay. So maybe you've heard of the blood flow occlusion, and this is just a good old fashioned case of getting the pump. It can be either or both. Both of those, all of it, any of it can stimulate muscle growth, right? Muscle hypertrophy. Although at this time, right, the exact metabolites involved in the muscle growth, right, the metabolites that are produced by the stress, they aren't well known. I'm sure we'll find them eventually. Okay. Now, maybe I've missed 1, 2, or 3, and you feel free to point them out, right? But this is what we've got so far, and I'm sure that we are going to discover more ways to build muscle. So finally, let's take a look at actually what sets the kettlebell apart from other tools like the barbell or the dumbbell. Okay, the kettlebell does have at least one unique property, and that is its offset handle. Now look, the fact that you hold the handle here and the weight sits on the back of your hand, right, the back of your wrist, which is really the technical term, and then the handle rotates inside your hand and the weight rotates around your fist or your hand and then lands on the back of your wrist. Well, that offset handle makes your muscles in your joints work harder, and that increases the tension both on the joints via compression and the muscles through, right, stretch and contraction. And those things, at least according to some of the aforementioned hypertrophy mechanism research, creates the muscle growth from the kettlebell. Okay. Plus, there's also the inconvenient fact that people who love barbells and dumbbells, and by the way, I love barbells. Okay. I cut my teeth on barbells. All right. I came to the kettlebell. When was that? 2000. I had already been beating myself up with a barbell and bodyweight exercises for 11 years at that point. Okay. So well over a decade, and I had the scars to prove it. Okay. So the fact that you can take this kettlebell and hold it by the offset handle and swing it underneath your body through your legs and quickly stretch the muscles of your posterior chain, right? Your posterior chain, in case you don't remember or don't know, and that's totally fine. You're here to get an education, right? Are your glutes, your hamstrings, your calves, the muscles of your bottom, the bottom of your feet, and the muscles that run up your back on either side of your spine. All right. So fast eccentrics, which is what that quick eccentric stretch is called, works, okay, the posterior chain, and it works it really well. All right. Furthermore, these fast eccentrics using the kettlebell ballistics actually compress your abdominal musculature, and that makes it harder to breathe. Okay. And that right there gets a few more of those hypertrophy mechanisms working, depending on, again, how you program. All right. So speaking of how you program, thank you, Jeff, for finally getting here. How do you program? Well, I'm going to give you my 3 surefire, and there are other ways, but these are 3 surefire ways to build muscle with your kettlebells. I've been using these since 2002, I guess, with my clients, right? Okay, now here they are. Number 1 is you program off a 5 repetition max using the double kettlebell lifts, like the double kettlebell clean and the double kettlebell press and the double kettlebell front squat. Number 2, you program off a 10 repetition max, also using some of the double kettlebell lifts. My favorites in this rep range, just 10 RM, are the clean and press, the clean and push press, and the clean and jerk. Now, one of my all-time favorite ways, and you've got to be injury-free to do this, and you really need to know your way around the lifts, right? You shouldn't be trying to practice your form or technique when you're building muscle using these particular methods, are double kettlebell complexes and double kettlebell chains. Now, if you don't know what those are, we will leave a link to a video in the description below, or maybe we'll find it up here somewhere next to me. I don't know how you do that. My editor is a genius, so maybe he can do that, maybe he can't. So what do programs look like using those 3 methods? Well, I will leave links to some programs for you, so you don't have to try and figure this out for yourself. They'll be in the video description below. So look, let's just remember here, at the end of the day, it's not that hard to build muscle using kettlebells. You just have to be A, willing to do the actual work, and B, be smart about the work you're doing. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, click the like button, smash the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. Okay, share this with a friend you know who's trying to build some muscle using his kettlebells, and leave me a comment in the comment section below. Have you tried these methods before? If so, what were your results? What are your favorite methods for building muscle with kettlebells, and have you been able to build muscle with kettlebells? Any comment is welcome. Just keep it clean and respectful, all right? Until next time, my friend, stay strong.